Hey, LaFred and David, how you doing, guys?
Doing good, sir.
Good, good.
Good. So, LaFred, you are in Belgium, and David, you are in Texas, and I am in Japan. We spoke, I guess, about a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago. And so I wanted to catch up with you guys and do a new podcast, see what's new in the community, see what's new with the technology. And we know life is largely the same, so we can just, I guess, skip that. But so anyway, yeah, LaFred, let's just start with you. What's new with MySQL? I understand there's a new version coming out, a dot release.
Yes, so yesterday, yesterday, we released 8.026. It's more, let's say, compared to other one, the bug fixes, several bug fixes, and depreciation of all the TLS versions. That's the main stuff. But since we spoke, there is something that has been wonderful and a big move for MySQL. It was the launch of HeatWave. Don't know if you've heard about it. So HeatWave, it's analytic, I won't say engine, but analytic service of MySQL in OCI cloud. Mm-hmm. So and this is
so there's going to be an event on this soon, right? I think there's going to be like a corporate event soon.
10th of August, there is some event on that. There was the launch, that was also a big event, I would say, but now the 10th of August, there is something about it. And so, yeah, the performance and price is very, very competing with the others. So this is the biggest, let's say, change in MySQL 8 and in OCI for us.
So this is a new MySQL service in OS in Oracle Cloud.
Yes. So you have the MySQL service. So you say, I would like to have a database that I don't need to manage. So all managed for you. And this is MDS, we call it, MySQL Database Service. But on top of this, you can say, I would like in MDS to enable this analytics process to make queries much faster. And for some queries, it can go 400 times faster and even more. So, but this is you to say, I would like to enable that because my queries are slow. And this is something, a completely new technology that it's really bound to the hardware we have in OCI and in memory. And and you can enable or disable on demand. So when you know, I will have, and let's say that the nice thing with this is that you don't have to change anything in your application. So your application has always the same entry point. Do the queries like it is, like if it was a regular MySQL, and you can benefit or not if you enable it or not. But you don't have to stream data somewhere else and connect somewhere else to do back office or all that. It's all the same MySQL in fact. So this is why for us it's a very key changer, and for the user too.
Excellent. So I would imagine, I mean, it sounds major, so I'd imagine you guys have been working on this for, quite a while.
Yes. So MDS, it's one of a big priority of the MySQL team, because all this is made by the MySQL team. So the same people that are doing MySQL, let's say enterprise and community, we are also doing MySQL database service. It's not the OCI team of Oracle doing it. It's the MySQL team doing it in OCI. So we are busy on that. Of course, HeatWave is technology that comes from Oracle Labs. So we are working with also these Oracle Labs guys that are part of the team now, of the MySQL team. So this was very an interesting project, and all the benefit for the customers. And you can only have it on OCI. This is the only way you can get that.
Cool. Fred, do you want to talk about the HA option too?
You can talk about it, Dave, if you want.
Well, used to be if you had a MySQL database instance, that was good enough. Then we had replication. And then a couple of years ago, we introduced group replication and InnoDB cluster. Well, one of the options on MySQL Data Service is to have high availability. And to you, it looks like you're setting up one machine, but there's actually 3 machines behind the covers. So if one goes down, processing shifts to the other 2. The powers that be find out why that machine failed and get it back to you, and you don't have to manage it. So if you want the power and robustness of InnoDB cluster, you can have it off the MySQL database service.
Cool. So is this a part of the new service, or is this just a part of MySQL itself?
It's part of the MySQL service on OCI.
Okay.
Yeah, it's both. I mean, you can deploy it by yourself if you want to on your machine or whatever. But also in MDS, you can say, oh, I want HA in MBS. And you can say, I want HA fault domain. So on the same data center, different fault domain, or on different availability domains. And it's possible to do that also. So it's possible to say, I want to have an instance and to have I have ability for my instance. And all the user or the customer has just to say, okay, I want to have this, and then nothing else. All it's automatic, and everything is done for him. Backups, HA, if there is an issue, a failover will be done for the user without any problem.
Cool. So it seems like things are evolving nicely. You got some new features there. You got a whole new service, and what's the reaction been?
Staggering. The list
a good
of folks
way, right?
The folks coming in and testing out HeatWave are amazing. I can't name the customers, but your eyes will pop at some of them. It's kind of like, oh my goodness.
Really?
A friend of mine is using the clustering option with high availability, and one of the problems they had is with COVID, you can't have someone come into the shop and run everything, so they moved everything into the cloud. Unfortunately, they picked someone else's cloud. Now they're moving over to OCI just because they find the price and the performance exactly what they need. So it's going to be things where us old guys, like the three of us, are going to be saying, whenever we used to have our own data on a computer that we could actually touch.
Yeah, exactly. And backups too, right here in the kitchen, right?
I still have some of the tapes and floppies around here.
But there are some press release or white paper from customers, so that make the comparison by themselves, or third-party people testing it. And there was some press release out last week, I guess. Maybe we can send you the links if you haven't seen them.
Send me the links and I'll put them in the notes. And so was this? I know this stuff sounds vaguely familiar, so I know it's been working on for a while. But I mean, was this something that was accelerated because of the pandemic? Because David, you mentioned you can't have everybody always be co-located on these things.
Well, I know the Rapid project has been going on for several years, which is HeatWave.
Right.
And that's been running for many, many years. And I think we just happened to introduce it during the pandemic.
Okay.
The high availability, I think it was just a natural outgrowth of InnoDB cluster. And that just also happened to pop up. Our engineering team is rather prescient on a lot of things, and things just happen to come out at just the right time in the right market.
I think it's also just a coincidence, right?
Well, we should take credit for it if we can, but we really can't.
No, but I mean, it was a coincidence that it comes out because we were working on that before, of course. Right. And last time we went to Japan, just before the pandemic, we were already trying to involve people for the beta testing of it already. Cool. Finding people that has to do the beta test with real data. So we were trying to find people that wanted, and we knew that people in Japan were very interested with that. So we went there in Japan to meet the people and to ask them to test it. And so it was already a running process, and being let's say a GA during the pandemic was just a coincidence, but a good coincidence for us.
Yeah, the reason I ask is there's been a lot of, the pandemic has forced obviously a lot of changes on really everything. And so it's, forced a lot of companies to move to basically speed up their deployments into the cloud, So that's really why I asked. And you mentioned Japan. I know the MySQL community is very big here, and also the customer base as well. So David, what's new in your world out there in Texas?
Been doing a lot of online presentations, which
everybody.
For someone who likes being in front of an audience, I have been doing too many of them. The good news is that it looks like this fall there's at least a handful of shows that are going to be live. Two of those rather close to me in Texas. I also have permission to write another book from Oracle Legal.
Oh, cool.
I wrote a book a couple of years ago, just put out the second edition last year on the MySQL JSON data type. I've been doing a presentation on indexes and histograms only. There's so much to MySQL. It's kind of hard to pick one subject or two to carry it out. Anyway, I see a lot of folks at conferences, especially developers, who don't understand indexes. Well, why can't I index everything? Why can't I just throw everything to one column and just separate it out later and parse it later? It kind of breaks a lot of the rules. So I'm trying to write a low to intermediate level book on indexes and have a lot of good material there, and then add in histograms. So sometime I have to find some spare time and get that written.
Cool. And LaFred, you were talking earlier about a book as well, or it's like doing reviews or something.
Yes, what I saw, because we were talking about what's changed during the pandemic, right? And it seems that a lot of people that were interested in MySQL found finally the time to write a book, because I've been requested by editors or by authors to review or write some notes on the books that will come out very soon. So this is something, usually it's maybe one a year, or it's already the third this year. So, it will continue. And it's nice because it's in different languages. So I've seen, of course, in English from people in America, from people in Europe. And yesterday was from somebody in China that asked me to check his book and stuff. So it's very nice.
Cool. So
and by the way, I don't know if we covered last time, but MySQL just turned 25 years old. So that's kind of a big milestone.
I think that was coming up when we spoke. It hadn't actually happened yet.
Yeah.
So you and Java, right?
Yeah, and PHP.
And PHP. So who's the youngest of the three?
It's me.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about the languages. I'd say Java by probably a month or so.
Oh, really?
Sure.
That much, huh? Just a month. Wow. So these are all obviously open source projects. Well, they're more than just projects now. They started out as projects. Now they're just global, massive communities and people working on them, and it's a whole market ecosystems as well. So is there anything that any trends that you've seen? I mean, obviously when we spoke last, we were just sort of entering this new world, and so both of you obviously were talking about you doing a lot of conferences and getting burned out on just everything being virtual, and so now we're sort of 18 months into this thing. Any trends that you've spotted along the way? Any experiences that you learned? I mean, in terms of from working with the community and doing your interactions strictly virtually?
Well, you have to be
it's
more...
It's a complicated question, right?
Yeah. Some things that you can explain in person, by drawing something on the back of a napkin or hand signals. You can't do that in emails or even on a Zoom call. So that's kind of hard. What's interesting to me is a lot of younger developers that I'm in contact with are coming back and rediscovering things like the relational model. For so long they've been saying, well, we'll just throw it in a JSON document and parse it out later when we need it. Well, several years down the road, they are seeking performance and they're looking for ways to do things better. And they're rediscovering the relational model and SQL and a lot of older technologies. So
you say they're rediscovering this or discovering it for the first time? Why? What's the issue there?
I think for the past several years, we were told that the latest and greatest technology is always the best. Therefore, we're going to do NoSQL instead of SQL because SQL is so 1990s or year 2000s. But the reason SQL has been around for 50 years is because it works. And a lot of these younger developers are now retracing their steps and looking at decisions they made in their infrastructure and realizing that Well, maybe this database thing isn't all bad. Maybe we really do need to have things normalized and put in tables and set up proper indexes and run things the way that our parents and grandparents did. So.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that, because I've always been, because I'm really old now as well. And so when I used to, when I was allowed out of the kitchen, I'd go to conferences. And one of the things I liked to do was to talk to a lot of the younger developers. Some of them are, just 20 years old, just out of, college, because they have such a different perspective on things that I can't have, being so much older. But in that whole process, I would also observe some of the older engineers interacting with these, younger developers. You do learn from younger people, but it's a reciprocal relationship. They were always generally open to learning from us as well, in terms of community development, obviously from me, and engineering from the engineers. So that's good to hear. It's good to hear that they don't necessarily think that everything that went before is needs to be abandoned. There's some sort of, you can save some things from the past, and it has benefit. It has real value.
Well, the learning curve for new developers is so steep these days that it's amazing to me. When I started, I had a text editor, VI. I had assembly language in C and maybe some stuff in Perl. I had GNU debugger, and I had SCCS to control my source code. That was it. Everything else was on me. You look at a young developer coming in now, they have to learn how to write the tests. They have to write the stuff that interfaces with the continuous integration software. They have highlighting IDEs that sometimes mislead them. They have 3 or 4 languages they're playing with, plus JavaScript. They have all this other stuff on top of them, and they're trying to get things in and out of GitHub, test out other people's libraries. It's just a almost vertical learning curve. And really? I applaud them for being able to step up and do that. It's mind-boggling.
Is the rate increasing as well? I mean, this is not a new phenomenon. I mean, there's always been more new.
Yeah.
Is it increasing the last couple of years or so?
I could say that it slowed a little bit during the pandemic, but it's still kind of increasing. I don't know what Fred's saying, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would say related to that, as they have to know much more stuff to start, like the full stack developer, they code it like that. I have sometimes the impression that they know it less, or less good something. We have sometimes questions on MySQL that you say, come on, is it real to ask this, right? It's but even if somebody is not a DBA or doesn't know about MySQL, but some questions are very I would say, I don't like to say, I always say there is no stupid question, just stupid answers. But sometimes we are very close to that, and we say, is it possible? And the guy say, oh, I'm a senior developer, and ask you something very strange, and you say, really? Think about what you are asking. This is possible. And I think they have so many things to learn or to do, and then that it was only development, but now they have also operation, because they go on Docker and then need to deploy. Then they need to deploy their stuff on Jenkins or whatever to do the CI. And it's complicated. But to come back to your first question about the community, right? If there were some changes, what I see is that the MySQL community, at least, it's based, of course, on the database. It's based on technology, but it was based a lot on person. And we can see, and with the events we are doing live at Oracle or others, right? We could keep this community all together. And now we can see that this old-timer community members, we split a bit because it's because of the time, because like we always say, far from the eye, far from the earth, right? It's almost that end. But due to that, we can see then a lot of new people joining, other people in our community that were not the guys we were used to meet during the conferences. Yeah. And when we do all this, so all these virtual conference are very boring for the old-timers MySQL. They don't even, at the beginning, bar curiosity. They were joining, asking questions and stuff like that. No, they are not even joining anymore, it seems. But we have newcomers, new people asking questions, joining and participating. Like I met some people that it was the first time we talk about MySQL, and with them, we accomplish helping them on chat, mails, Slack and stuff, up to the time where I invite them to talk to conferences, and they did. So these are new speakers defending MySQL or talking about MySQL, which was very nice. Maybe without the pandemic, these new people would never been doing this. So that was this is the two parts. The old ones, it's a bit splitting or too far or stopping, I would say. But we have also new people joining. So, but I won't say it's growing because we have new and we have all leaving or less appearing. I hope that when we go online, we can regroup all together, all these people, the old ones and the new ones, and then it will be all benefit. That time will only say.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so... Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
What's also interesting is when I started working with MySQL, was really interesting is a lot of junior DBAs who, like everyone, you have to take that first step in the process. We had several, especially that became Oracle aces when Oracle took over, who were very good people who have now climbed the corporate ladder. So their DBA days are now many, many years behind them. So as the DBA role changes and they evolve, it's been very interesting to watch that. So a lot of these folks that are coming in today, 5, 10, 15 years from now will be the CTOs, the head data analysts and the super managers of the future. So it's exciting because sometimes you see sparks from the older generation that are in these newer faces and you realize, this person's going somewhere.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that's the benefit of being around for a while. And you've both been highly focused on MySQL for a long time, so you can really see the growth and the changes. That's why I like to catch up with you every now and then. Let's make this an annual event. The world changes so much in a year. We'll do this once a year, and. Okay, so we got some community changes and we got a new service that everyone is thrilled about. And we got a new version here this last week. Is there anything that's sort of being worked on now that you can talk about at all in terms of, say 6 months from now? Is there anything going on the engineering side? Or even just trends, if you can't.
We cannot say. We cannot say because it's like that. But the only thing I can say is that there will be something very cool. That's it. But last time we discussed, I told you there was something cool coming, and you didn't we also released the Kubernetes operator for MySQL. So it was also something that it's out now for 1 month, 2 months, I would say, Dave, I guess. So for people that are enjoying containers and stuff, there is a MySQL operator for Kubernetes. So official one, supported by the MySQL team, made by the MySQL team, and using the shell. This is the big difference between the MySQL one and any others one around, is that this one is using the shell to do all the calls it needs to do and so on. So,
and the shell itself has been exploding. We've added all these new utilities to dump instances and schemas and restore them that are amazingly fast. I know several shops that have backed away from MySQL dump as their main backup procedure into these things because they're just amazingly slick, work in parallel, do everything right. So the shell team has been doing amazing things, and it's just, well, Fred and I are kind of
jaded. It's just the start, I would say.
Yeah, Fred and I are kind of jaded. It's kind of like, oh, here's another fantastic feature. But it's amazing stuff. They add it all the time.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, well, there's more coming. That'll be the tease, and we'll catch up in 6 or 8 months. And maybe we'll catch up live, right?
I hope so.
In person. So cool. LeFred, David, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.